Horror gripped Angela Hayes' body when police lights flashed behind her car. Just a few minutes ago, she was celebrating another successful charity event at a community center. Her sequined dress shimmering in the light of street lamps as she drove through the quiet suburbs of Dallas. Now, as she watched the policeman approaching her in the rearview mirror, a voice in her head whispered that something was wrong with this stop. New real-life stories present a story that will shake the Dallas Police Department to the core. Later, she would tell reporters about what had happened, but at that moment, Angela could only grip the steering wheel tighter and remember everything her husband Malcolm, the city's police commissioner, had taught her about how to stay calm during a stop. The next 15 minutes will test not only her endurance, but also expose a deeply rooted problem in law enforcement, which even her husband could not have foreseen. When Angela reached for her driver's license and registration documents with trembling fingers, she did not know that she was about to become a catalyst for changes that would sweep through the entire police force. Her instincts screamed that this was an unusual test. Every step of the approaching officer seemed carefully calculated, predatory. Through the lowered window, the night air carried a tension that made her skin crawl, and the fabric of her dress suddenly seemed like fragile armor in front of an impending threat. Driver's license and registration. The officer's voice lacked the professional politeness she had heard countless times at department events. The beam of the flashlight deliberately sharply traced her face, as if searching for a shadow of defiance in her expression. The light lingered on her hands, which remained motionless despite the frantically pounding heart. "Of course, an officer," Angela replied, maintaining the same restraint developed over years of work in the field of public services. Her fingers moved slowly and very carefully as she took out the documents, remembering her husband's warning about how quickly the situation could get out of control. "May I know the reason for the stop?" Her voice sounded even, though her throat was dry. The officer's response sent ice coursing through her veins. "A car similar to yours was involved in suspicious activity." The words hung in the air like a flimsy excuse that reminded her of countless stories she had heard at public meetings. Stories that most often ended badly. Stories she vowed to change. But now she found herself in one of them. When the second patrol car pulled up to the curb, Angela's diplomatic mask almost cracked. Years of work in the field of human rights activities taught her to recognize the tactics of intimidation. And it was a classic of the genre. Arrival of two more officers. Their hands, casually resting next to their weapons, spoke more than any words about their intentions. The red and blue lights cast ominous shadows on their faces. "Get out of the car. Immediately." The order came with a threat that made Angela's heart pound harder. But her voice remained firm. "I am following instructions, officer, but I would like to understand the reason for such a severe escalation." Every step on the cold asphalt felt like a step on a battlefield that she never wanted to enter. Standing in the cool of the night and watching them search her car without permission, Angela experienced a storm of emotions. Anger at the violation of her rights fought with an instinctive understanding that any manifestation of indignation would only add fuel to the fire. The pamphlets from the community center, which she had spent countless hours preparing, were now scattered around the trunk, like evidence of a fictional crime. "And what do we have here?" One of the officers picked up her fundraising materials, holding them like contraband. Angela straightened up, allowing years of negotiations in the boardrooms to give her voice a steely tone. "These are the booklets of the community center. I'm coming back from a charity event." She saw how her explanation was instantly ignored. In their eyes, their own version of events has already developed. Their scornful grins made it clear that they had already written their script. Every randomly discarded booklet, every rude slamming of her car doors served as a reminder of their power over the situation. The sound of the Velcro undoing as they adjusted their tactical vests made her shudder inwardly. Although outwardly she remained calm, Malcolm's phone kept flashing from his calls. Each vibration signal was like a lifeline that she was not allowed to grab. When she was finally allowed to answer, Angela's voice sounded with the calm authority she had developed as a community leader. "Malcolm, I need you here." They searched without reason. She heard his sharp intake of breath, knowing that he understood everything that was left unsaid. The change in the officer's behavior when Malcolm arrived at the scene was like ice cracking under pressure. His tall, imposing figure, the commissioner's badge shining under the street lights, instantly changed the balance of power. However, it was his restrained rage that attracted the most attention. Every confident step he took to the scene carried years of accumulated frustration with the system he had vowed to reform. "Can someone explain why my wife is being detained?" Malcolm's voice was heavy from years of fighting just such an abuse of power. The officer faltered, his explanations of procedures and protocols sounding hollow in the face of Malcolm's authority. Their previous confidence evaporated like morning dew under the scorching sun. "Since when does the protocol include a search of a car without consent or sufficient grounds?" His question sliced through the officer's justification like a blade. Malcolm's every word carried the weight of many similar cases that he had seen in his career. However, this time, he had the power to demand responsibility. The growing crowd of observers felt the importance of the moment, picking up their phones to record what was happening. Their presence added another layer of tension to the unfolding drama. Angela watched her husband manage the situation with the skill of a man who has been trying to change the system from the inside for years. Each of his words sounded with purpose, turning a personal incident into a lesson about the responsibility of the authorities. The camera flashes and the quiet hum of the online broadcast ensured that this moment would not be buried in bureaucracy. When Lieutenant Donovan arrived, his attempt to move the conversation behind closed doors was met with Malcolm's adamant refusal. "No," Malcolm declared, his voice carried to every recording phone. "Transparency should happen here, in front of the people you serve. Your officers must understand that there are consequences for their actions." The lieutenant's face tightened. He realized that he was in a losing situation. The night air was charged with the electricity of change as Malcolm addressed the assembled crowd. "That's why responsibility matters." His voice sounded not only the power of his position, but also the personal interest of a husband protecting his wife. "This is the behavior that we are fighting." The mood of the crowd changed. They turned from mere spectators into participants. Their presence became not just curiosity, but solidarity. Angela stood beside him, her calm dignity speaking louder than any protest. She came to this evening as a community leader for a charity event, but she will leave it as a symbol of the changes they were striving for. The discomfort of the officers, the irritation of the lieutenant, the approving murmur of the crowd, all this crystallized at a moment that would force the department to face its deepest problems. The flashing lights that had filled Angela with fear at first now illuminated a transformation scene where years of working inside the system faced the harsh reality of its shortcomings. As Malcolm continued to dissect the officers' excuses, Angela realized that sometimes the most powerful catalyst for change comes not from finding them, but from perseverance in the face of injustice. The crowd recorded every word, every reaction, ensuring that this moment would resound far beyond this intersection. In their faces, Angela saw the same determination that she had seen at countless community meetings. People are ready for real change, they just need a push to catch fire. This evening will be such a boost. A routine document check turned into a turning point for the fight for justice in Dallas. In the following days, the video spread across social networks. Angela's story touched people's hearts, not because she was the wife of a police commissioner, but because she showed exceptional dignity in the face of injustice. Her experience was a watershed moment for the Dallas Police Department. "What happened that night wasn't just about me," Angela explained on the community forum. "This concerned everyone who has ever felt helpless during a document check. The only difference was that I had a person who could make them listen." The department has introduced large-scale reforms. Mandatory trainings on de-escalation of conflicts, civil control councils, reforms in the use of body cameras. But for Angela, the most important change was in the messages she received. Stories of people who found their voice after seeing her stand her ground. Malcolm often says that real change begins when someone refuses to put up with the status quo. That night on one of the streets of Dallas, Angela did more than just refuse. She showed others how to stand with dignity. If this story has affected you, help Real Stories reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support will help to convey more voices and tell more stories about yourself.